Imagine sleeping inside a metal cylinder that once held methane at minus 162 degrees Celsius. Now picture that same tank becoming humanity's home on the moon. 2,400 cubic meters of living space, double the entire International Space Station in a single launch. This is Elon Musk's plan that's got China scrambling. Sounds completely insane, right? Here's the thing, though. The engineering might actually work. So, how do you turn a fuel tank built to contain explosive cryogenic propellant into a place where people can live for months? Let's start with the basics. Starship's upper stage has about 1,000 cubic meters of pressurized space in its payload bay. That's already comparable to a big chunk of the ISS. But here's where it gets wild. Once Starship lands on the moon, those enormous fuel tanks, the ones holding liquid methane at minus 162 Celsius and oxygen at minus 183, they're empty. Just sitting there. Musk's idea? Convert them into additional living area. That adds roughly 1,400 cubic meters. Do the math. 2,400 cubic meters total. The ISS took 30 years and more than 40 launches to hit 1,000 cubic meters. This isn't just a better approach. It completely rewrites the economics of building things in space. Now, turning a cryogenic fuel tank into somewhere humans can actually live isn't simple. You've got to rip out all the propulsion systems. Then engineers install a floor running through the center of that cylindrical hull, basically creating multiple levels. Life support gets integrated everywhere. Air recycling, water recovery, temperature control, radiation shielding. What you end up with looks less like a rocket and more like a vertical apartment building. Living quarters, labs, storage, operational spaces, all stacked up efficiently. And this whole approach? It kills Gateway, NASA's planned lunar orbital station that's already burning through billions. Starship just flies straight from Earth to the lunar surface, then transforms into the habitat. Done. The engineering makes sense. That's not the question. The question is whether NASA can actually pull this off. And that's where Jared Isaacman comes in. Isaacman became NASA administrator in early 2025. His background is nothing like any previous administrator. He's not some career bureaucrat who climbed the government ladder. Guy built Shift 4 Payments into a multi-billion-dollar company. He's a commercial pilot. And critically, he's actually flown SpaceX hardware. In orbit. Twice. He commanded Inspiration 4 back in 2021, then Polaris Dawn in 2024, which went higher than any crewed mission since Apollo. During that flight, he did the first commercial spacewalk, testing SpaceX's EVA suit in vacuum. This isn't theoretical knowledge for him. He's trusted his life to this hardware. That matters more than you'd think. When Starship prototypes were exploding during testing, SN8, SN9, SN10, SN11, traditional aerospace people saw failures. Problems requiring investigation, review boards, months of analysis. Isaacman? He gets it. That's how SpaceX works. Each explosion generates data. Engineers figure out what broke, redesign it, test again, usually within weeks. This iterative approach is faster than anything else out there, but you need leadership that understands failures aren't disasters. They're part of the process. Plus, Isaacman can just call Elon Musk or Gwynne Shotwell directly when issues pop up. No bureaucratic layers slowing everything down. He speaks both languages, government space and commercial aerospace. That might be more valuable than any technical expertise he could have. Because NASA's biggest problem? It's not technical. It's institutional. The Space Launch System started development in 2011. First flight? November 2022. 11 years. And each launch runs about $4 billion when you factor in program costs. $4 billion. For one flight. Compare that to SpaceX. Falcon 9 went from concept to first orbital flight in 6 years. Starship got to orbital test attempts in roughly 5 years from initial announcement. When SpaceX hits a problem, fixes happen in weeks. When NASA hits a problem, review boards meet for months, sometimes years. This isn't because NASA has bad engineers. They've got some of the brightest minds in aerospace. The problem is how the system works. Every decision goes through multiple approval layers. Contractors are spread across all 50 states for political reasons, not because it makes engineering sense. After Challenger and Columbia, risk aversion became part of NASA's DNA. Safety matters, absolutely. But the pendulum swung so far that even minor changes trigger massive review processes. The pattern keeps repeating. New administration announces big goals. NASA starts developing. Timelines slip. Costs go up. Programs drag on for decades. Bush announced we'd return to the moon back in 2004. 20 years later, we still haven't. Isaacman's trying to change NASA's fundamental role, shift from manufacturer to customer. Let commercial companies design and build the components. NASA focuses on requirements, safety oversight, mission integration. Use contracts that reward speed and results, not the cost-plus arrangements that actually incentivize going slow. Whether he's got the political muscle to make that happen, we'll see. But he's better positioned for this fight than anyone before him. Then there's money. NASA runs on about $25 billion a year. That covers everything: Earth science, planetary missions, human spaceflight, all of it. A permanent moon base? Estimates run from 100 to 200 billion over 15 to 20 years. That's 5 to 10 billion annually on top of what Artemis already costs. But Artemis has something unusual: bipartisan support. Trump started it in 2017. Biden increased funding. Trump's December 2025 executive order reaffirmed it with a 2028 landing target. Both parties have skin in the game. And national security concerns are driving space policy now in ways they didn't during Apollo. China's building their international lunar research station with Russia, aiming for the 2030s. When rivals start showing strategic capabilities, the US historically responds with infrastructure investment. Isaacman can pitch the moon base as strategic competition and economic security. That's language Congress understands. His credibility helps too. Successful businessman and orbital pilot, he talks differently than career bureaucrats. And NASA doesn't have to fund everything. SpaceX is developing Starship with their own money. Other companies can provide specialized systems under performance-based contracts. The budget problem isn't solved, but the tools to tackle it are stronger. Still, even with all that, institutional reform, funding secured, everything hinges on one technology that's never been proven: orbital refueling. This is the make-or-break piece. Starship can't carry enough propellant to reach the moon, land, and come back in one go. The mission requires launching to low Earth orbit, then getting fuel from about 20 separate tanker flights. Those tankers have to rendezvous, dock, and transfer cryogenic propellants. Methane at -162°C, oxygen at -183. Nobody's ever stored these propellants in space for extended periods. Nobody's transferred them between spacecraft in orbit at these temperatures. The challenges? Preventing boil-off when sunlight heats the tanks, managing fluid dynamics in microgravity, leak-proof connections, coordinating precise orbital mechanics for 20 separate operations. If orbital refueling doesn't work reliably, Starship can't reach the moon. No lunar access means no fuel tank to convert. The whole thing collapses. Look at current Artemis 3 timelines. NASA originally said 2025 for the first crewed landing. That became 2026, then 2027. Realistic estimates now? 2028 or later. These delays aren't political, they're technical. SpaceX keeps testing, refining booster recovery, developing the refueling systems. Progress is happening, but proven operational capability? That's still in the future. Power's another real challenge. Solar panels work great during the lunar day, but the moon's night lasts 14 Earth days. Temperatures drop to -173°C. Batteries big enough to run a base for 2 weeks would be massive. NASA's contracted for fission reactor designs that deliver at least 40 kilowatts continuously. These compact nuclear systems could run indefinitely, powering everything regardless of day-night cycles. Developing space-rated fission reactors brings its own complications: radiation shielding, heat rejection in vacuum, regulatory approval. But unlike orbital refueling, we understand the physics. It's challenging engineering, not unknown territory. What's making China nervous isn't just American ambition. It's the possibility that the US might actually sync up government resources with commercial speed. China's centralized space program gets impressive results through methodical, step-by-step progress. But if SpaceX proves Starship can reliably haul massive payloads to the lunar surface, the whole competitive picture changes overnight. China's approach, smaller payloads on expendable rockets, assembling infrastructure piece by piece, suddenly looks economically obsolete. One Starship landing delivers more habitable space than their entire planned station. Cost per kilogram drops by orders of magnitude. At that point, America's not just competing, we're playing a completely different game. So living inside Starship's fuel tanks isn't crazy. It's actually the only architecture that makes economic sense, assuming orbital refueling works. That's what China's really watching, not whether NASA can build a moon base, but whether Isaacman can get NASA moving at SpaceX speed while SpaceX cracks the refueling problem. Both happen? The space race changes completely. Either one fails. We're looking at another decade of delays. What do you think? Can Isaacman actually transform NASA's culture? Or is the bureaucracy too entrenched? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This community always brings perspectives I hadn't considered. If this helped you understand what's actually happening behind the headlines, hit that like button and subscribe to New Space Review. We're tracking every development as this unfolds, and I want you here for all of it. Thanks for watching. Got a video on orbital refueling technology queued up next? It's already on your screen. Let's keep talking about this.